Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Urban Stage's Artist Chat. Today, I'm very, very excited because we're launching a new series called Heroes and Villains. And with us today is the director of one of these short monologues that's happening in this series, Pedro Santos. Hi, Pedro. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hi, Sis. Thank you. I hope you're good as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're meeting me from London, right? You're currently in London, or are you in
No,
Portugal?
actually, I do work across some countries, but at this moment I'm in Portugal. Yeah. So
Oh,
it's really good that we have the option because I know you're in New York. So
yeah.
it's good we have this option to communicate.
I love the Zoom, I'll tell you. That
Yeah.
saved me through this pandemic. So,
Yeah.
speaking of the pandemic, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're very young. You've been directing. I know you've done quite a few virtual performances in London, and now you're back in Portugal. So, what are you up to, and how is this working for you with this crazy way we have to create art?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just thank you to Urban Stages for the program in itself. It's great. I'm so excited to see all the pieces. And thank you to you for hosting this meeting.
My pleasure.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I came from Portugal. And then 3 years ago, I came to study and I went to study theater in London. I finished my degree. And now I'm in between both countries because of the pandemic and all that. My home and my family are still there, but I still want to go back to London and be able to develop some work. But in the specific situation of the pandemic, I was also, I think, like many artists, it's like on Zoom, virtual is not the same thing. Like, how are you able to achieve like connection and all
Hmm.
like those basic things, or like building a set? How do you do that without just being like sometimes just a lazy virtual background?
Right.
I'm a fan of virtual backgrounds, but
Unless
doing
you do
that,
this, because then you get that
yeah,
little,
yeah,
it's gotta stay still.
yeah, exactly. And then some actors also have the problem. They're like, oh, I feel so stuck on camera because they feel the need to act small.
Hmm.
But what I like to develop is we're doing this on Zoom, but it's still theater. We're not doing a movie.
I have found sometimes though that as a singer myself, like sometimes being in this intimate environment lets me go to
Yeah,
places like if I'm encouraged to do that through my director, lets me go to
yeah,
places that's actually more intimate. So have you found that
yeah.
with your help, you've gotten the actors to actually look at the camera as an audience? Because that seems to be the hardest part.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the like eye lines and the eyesight are always like one of the most difficult things. But yeah, I always encourage looking at the camera. I think it's finding a middle in between looking at the camera because then they feel really tempted to look at the other actor's face so they can respond from it. One thing I try to avoid is trying not to create very different eyesights, like they're talking to an actor and one actor is there and they have to look over there.
Yeah.
If that is asked by the play, then I try to do that and just some specific things. I have done that before,
Hmm.
but that was just from some specific moments because it helps building sort of the fantasy really.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
the continuity of the look of it as well, I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah, and you're totally right. Doing this just allows for some more engagement
Hmm.
and more of that. But I just as I started doing performances online, I first of all because I act as well, so I started acting in some performances. I did 3 Shakespeare plays on Zoom with a lovely company called The Show Must Go On in London. They did all the plays of Shakespeare on Zoom. It's great, so much fun. And they did all the deaths and the stabbings and all those crazy things in Shakespeare. And once you see that happening, it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff you can do on Zoom
Hmm.
by changing the camera, by changing camera angles, by how can you kiss someone on Zoom? I've done that before. It's really exciting how you can come up with those
That's
possibilities.
interesting.
Yeah. So once I got to start directing plays, I got plays that would challenge me in those terms. I got plays. My first play that I directed on Zoom, I had to stage a sword fight on Zoom. And that
Hmm.
was really fun to do. As if both characters were in the same room. So that
Hmm.
was really, really interesting. They had to kiss on Zoom, they had to slap each other on Zoom. And then I went into plays that we had to build a garden on Zoom without a virtual background. And my last one, before this one, we had to make all the characters jump from the real world to a noir film world
Oh
like this.
wow, that must have been
And
cool with the black and white.
Yeah.
I can be in a film noir right now.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it's bringing a whole team together of professionals who kind of knew about those areas but had
Yeah.
never tried those specific concepts on Zoom.
Yeah.
People, we were able to collaborate and create that world, and all those plays were performed live. There was no editing, there was
Mm-hmm.
no start and stop and record again. There were live performed plays in the moment,
That's a
dealing
challenge
with
unto
all,
itself. Yeah.
yeah, dealing with connection problems and all that. So that was really exciting.
Let me ask you about collaboration. You mentioned collaboration. So now we have the playwright, Catherine Weingarten, and we
Yeah.
have your actor, Zach McCoy. I assume this is a one character monologue that
Yeah.
you're doing here.
Yeah.
And she's in New York, and he's a New York actor, and you're in Portugal, or were you in London at the time? And how did this
I
happen? Talk about trying to coordinate time zones
so
and connection.
Yeah, so I mean, this project comes after me having done a couple of Zoom plays by now, either acting and directing, doing both live and recorded shows. And it came about thanks to the lovely Barra Swain
She's
from
awesome,
Urban
isn't she?
Stages.
Yeah.
She's great. She's been helping me so much with new projects and all that. I'm really helpful. So I directed a show for the company called the Greenhouse Ensemble, really lovely company, which was just recently I started working with the New York zone. So it was through them that I was able to start doing some shows. And I directed a play of hers for their quarantine soiree, which is a
Mm-hmm.
project they have. It was one of really beautiful plays she wrote called Responsible.
Yeah,
The
she's
one we
also
create.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
a gem to us because not only is she an incredible playwright, she also coordinates all these kind of mini series for us for Urban Stages. So
yeah,
she's a gem.
she's
But
great. And
yeah,
she writes so much, yeah. Um,
so that was a
and
Zoom product of Barra's that you did.
yeah. I did that. I chose her play, and then I got in contact with her. We had lovely chats about the play. It's the one we had to recreate a garden
I see.
behind the actors, and they weren't. And we had to make it look like it was daytime because when we were doing, we were in London, and it was midnight when we performed. So that was crazy, but
Mm.
it was really fun. And after that, I spoke to her. She seemed to have quite enjoyed the final product, which I'm quite pleased. And then she said, we would like to include you in the Heroes and Villains programs. And I was like, great, yeah, let's work. That's great. So then I got the chance to meet Catherine, send her play, lovely play. I was like, can't wait to start doing this. Really lovely script. And then with Zach, and then so as you said, Catherine and Zach are in New York, and I am in Portugal. And our editor, lovely Ashley Go, we did a lot of shows together on Zoom. She's in London, so New York, because they're both in New York, that's one time zone to worry about. And I'm in Portugal and London, and London is the same. London and Portugal are the same time zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just, I think by now I can already convert the times in my head
Yeah.
because I've just been doing it constantly. So I'm like, right, I have to do this. I was like, just send me the schedule on your time zones, and I'll convert it.
Part of
But
Barra's vision, though, was to put people who didn't know each other together. So how was
yeah,
not knowing them, and was there a little grace period of just kind of talking and getting to know the playwright's vision and then getting to the actors so that you can direct them? Because most of us come together
yeah,
knowing a little bit about each other, and you were kind
yeah.
of just thrown together as a cluster, you know?
Yeah, in the beginning, yeah, I found that a bit daunting because up to that moment I had only worked with people who I knew could do the job,
Mm-hmm.
or people I trusted, or friends of mine. But then I was a bit daunting because I didn't know them. But I know the people who get into these festivals are because they're extremely professional, they're
Mm-hmm.
talented, of course, and they can deliver. So I was like, okay, it's gonna be good. So yeah, eventually I had a meeting with Catherine in the end of December, just having a normal chat, quick chat. I was having a family dinner and having a chat with her because it was a good time for her, and it was like midnight in here. So I was like, hi Catherine, how are you?
Excuse me, I'm eating my pasta.
Yeah, tell me about your play. So then we got to chat a bit about the play. And she's really lovely. She's the kind of writer I really like to work with,
Mm-hmm.
which says, do what you want. And I'm like, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I still respect the piece, but I like when writers or playwrights allow us to play a bit more with it, than just being an actor sitting looking at the screen. So then I had another meeting with Zach, and then Zach jumped on the project. Had a meeting with him, just a quick talk about the play. We figured out some ideas, some interesting starting points. That was really exciting, and I think it just worked. There was a lovely chemistry in between all the team members, really. So once that was achieved, we went straight into rehearsals, because as a director, I don't like to talk for too long. I like for us to dive deep and go and practice and just do and try in different ways, and then come together, talk, and build the final product. And I found that to be.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. No, I'm just saying, I found that to be, because on Zoom can be quite tiring for people. And I found this sort of practice to on our feet and running to be quite useful, because actors suddenly forget their fears. They're just busy doing a task, and that's all that is required, really.
These monologues, I think for the series is something, they're like 10 minutes each, right? Am I correct? They're like approximately 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think, from 6 to 10 minutes, yeah.
So how many man hours does it take, or in this case, Zoom hours, does it take to produce a 6 to 10 minute monologue in this new paradigm?
It really depends on the project, I think, because I've done plays when we had, as I said, we had to do superheroes and we had to do sword fights and all that, and that took like a lot of time because it takes practice and it takes camera angles and it has redo and it's quite tiring and exhausting, but the final product is good. For this specific one, there was no like massive requirements. The play lives a lot off what the actor is delivering to the camera.
I see.
So it was basically just a week. We met on Monday, Wednesday, and we recorded on Friday. It was quite a very quick process.
Awesome.
It was like ready to go, film. And then during last week, me and our lovely editor, we were doing the editing for the piece, and then we sent it off. Because once we recorded, it was quite fresh, so we didn't want it to waste it with doing it too many times. We did a couple of run-throughs. And then we just try to be as creative as possible with it, which is I think it's always the thing in these monologues is who is the artist, who is the character speaking to.
Well, speaking of which, tell us about the actual play, #Dateable. I understand from Bera that, speaking of villains and heroes, that a quote of a superhero was used to inspire the playwright to then write this little monologue. So do you know what that was, what that quote was, and how did it translate into #Dateable? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I was over the moon because the quote that from Dateable that I directed, the quote was, a mom's is a boy's best friend, something like that.
Mother is a boy's best friend.
Yeah, which is from my favorite movie ever, which is Psycho. It doesn't even seem, because I can't even say which I mean, I can't seem to say the word correctly, but I yeah, exactly. I was like, this is great. I was like, this is just like, I'm directing a movie about I'm writing a piece about Psycho. That's just great. But then there's a lot of stuff in the monologue in there.
Okay, already it's hysterical that it's #Dateable now that I know what the quote is. So that's awesome.
And it's great. And I think that allowed us to really think about, not just in relation to Psycho, but the possible relationship of the Norman Bates, which is the character in the movie that says that line, to the character in itself. So that was our first initial conversation, was like, instead of the character that is written in the monologue, which was Ted, should we do him as Norman Bates? Like Norman Bates after the prison, talking to the people like, so guys, this is what happened.
No, really, I'm a nice guy.
Yeah. I was like, I don't kill people. I like bathtubs. But then we found a lot of things that we could build from that, but then we didn't take that character on. We built our own thing, and we made it in a way that could be creative. It was engaging, and it was still able to pass the comedy that the piece had, but also the underneath subtext that was implicit. So that was a really fun process to go from one quote into something more. That was really
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome. Oh, I can't wait to see this. So, as a director, and you say you're an actor as well, how can we reach you? Where are you on social media? Are you hireable to do a cabaret show in New York, for example? Or no, seriously, tell us how we
Yeah.
can reach you and where can we find you and follow you on social media?
Yeah. So on Facebook, I'm Pedro Santos. So that's my Portuguese name. Uh, and then I'm on Twitter as well at Pedro Santos here. And then on Instagram on Pedro99 Araújo, which is like another name of mine, but mostly on Twitter.
Okay.
Pedro Santos here is like sort of the best way for like theater purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently in Portugal. I am, but I'm always available to do Zoom. I'm always available to act and direct for Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I'm thinking about other projects in person that I'm organizing. I'm always reachable, even if it's just to ask some advice if needed, or just to network really.
Mm-hmm. This is the
And,
awesome part of COVID and Zoom is that,
yeah.
I mean, I could never work with a director from Portugal before, I mean, and now we are able to in two different places to do these kinds of things. So
Yeah.
it can be a blessing if we embrace it on that aspect of it, What else are you working on right now? What else are you doing? Are you working on currently working on a play or anything or?
So currently, I'm also developing some writing related projects. I'm currently in Portugal,
Mm-hmm.
and so the case have been rising. But I'm from a small island called Madeira,
Mm-hmm.
Madeira Island, quite lovely island. And I mean, the restrictions are in place, but they're not as strict. Also because we're a smaller bunch of people.
Right. And on an
Um,
island, so that's got to help a little bit with containment.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, our theaters and all that, and our artistic places are still doing some work within the
Mm-hmm.
restrictions and all that. Our theaters are still open to a limited amount of audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a show that I was in that I wrote a solo performance. I wrote that I was going to act in that was prepared for London, but then it had to be postponed because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. So we're looking into rescheduling that. So at the moment, I'm translating that show to Portuguese to be able to present it here because I think it's easier
Mm-hmm.
in this format. Doing that, have a couple of Zoom plays I'll be directing soon, and at the same time, I think it's also important. I'm chilling as well.
Yeah.
um, I had more time to read plays, which is something that for 2 years I didn't really have. I was blaming myself because I was not reading enough plays, and last week I read like 7 to 8 plays. So that was quite good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where my mind's at the moment. But as I said, I'm always available for new collaborations,
Cool.
and I'm so happy to be working with the New York zone
Mm-hmm.
because as when I was a child, that was kind of one of my dreams as well, and still remains. So through Zoom, it's good that I'm kind of starting on that path
Going to
to be
be an
able to make.
international sensation, Santos. Mr.
Let's hope.
Santos. Mr. Santos, Director International.
Let's see. Let's see.
Listen, it was so nice to sit down and chat with you and to let our audience get to know a little bit of the people behind this amazing new series, Heroes and Villains, that's going to start up
Yeah.
very soon in February, right here at urbanstages.org. And we look forward to more coming out of Portugal and London from you. Stay in touch with us and let us know. I'm sure Bera will bring you in on other projects because she seems to really adore you. So
Thanks, Sue. I appreciate it. And thank you again for this opportunity. And it was such a lovely chat. It's good to be networking with
it's,
people.
we just do these very informally because it's really about introducing who you are. And like I said, the people behind all these wonderful plays. Because we learn about the actors and we learn about the playwrights.
Yeah.
We don't always learn about the directors. So we're trying to mix it up with some of the actors. And
Yeah,
so,
seems like
yeah.
a good project.
Cool. Thanks for thanks for being with us. And we'll see you next time on Urban Stages Artist
Thank
Chat.
you.
Take care, hon.